Hey guys, tonight we're about to step into the rank, briny heart of ancient Rome, where the streets buzz with gossip, the togas swirl with ambition, and somewhere in the chaos, someone is ladling out the world's stinkiest, most coveted condiment. Picture it now, you're in a Roman marketplace at dusk. Torches flicker, merchants holler over the din, and that smell, oh, that smell, hits you like a trident to the face. You gag, just a little, and wonder how on earth anyone survived this city with their dignity intact. Spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this either, at least not with your appetite. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through the forum, the chatter bouncing off marble columns, and you can't help but notice the merchants hawking amphorae stamped with mysterious fish symbols, garum. They hiss. Liquid gold. It's everywhere, seeping into the social fabric, making you wrinkle your nose while your wallet trembles. Rome runs on fish sauce like modern cities run on caffeine. You watch a toga-clad senator trade a small fortune for a single jug while a street vendor sells a cheaper, chunkier sludge to a laborer. Even the stray cats seem in on the hustle, sniffing around for scraps. Historians still argue whether garum's origin lies purely with Rome or if they borrowed it shamelessly from the Greeks, Phoenicians, or even older civilizations. But tonight, that debate fades as you listen to the sauce's siren call echo through every archway. The smell is sharp, feral, strangely alluring, a promise of salt, umami, and social climbing all in one bite. You weave between stalls, eyes darting to pyramids of olives, baskets of dates, and everywhere amphorae with black letter inscriptions proclaiming origin, quality, even the maker's name. You realize this isn't just food, it's commerce propaganda and status. The air is ripe with civic ambition, the belief that if Rome can master the sea's bounty, even its, refuse they can master the world. A fishmonger gives you a sly wink. This one's from Baetica, he croaks, voice as raspy as old parchment, best in the empire. A senator's wife wept for it. You don't know whether to laugh or retch, but you're intrigued, because this, you see, isn't just about taste, it's about power. And you get the distinct sense Rome is addicted to that far more than fish. The stench is relentless, wrapping around your senses until you almost stop noticing, almost. As you walk, you overhear a scholar lecturing a wide-eyed student about how garum is the essence of the sea, distilled and conquered. He even compares it to Roman law, containing chaos in an amphora, civilizing the unthinkable. It's a metaphor so on. The nose you have to smother a giggle. Meanwhile, a couple argues over which brand to buy. The man wants cheap Maria, the watery dregs left after first pressed garum. The woman insists they're not animals. She wants the finest liquamen, clear and golden. You keep moving, pretending not to listen, but you're learning the social code in real time. Garum's not just sauce, it's class warfare, tableside snobbery, and ancient Yelp reviews all in one. And then there's the fish itself, mackerel mostly, but anything that swims or squelches can go in. Heads, guts, spines, nothing is wasted. You stare at a barrel leaking brine onto the paving stones and try not to think too hard about what's swimming in there. A child pokes the barrel and runs off squealing when a bit of fish skin drapes over the edge. You feel for that kid. But here's the thing, the Romans aren't embarrassed about any of this. They're proud. It's industry, empire. Fish sauce helped fuel their economy, feed their legions, and even heal their wounds, or so they claimed. You'll hear more about that later, but for now, you just stand there breathing it all in, half horrified, half fascinated. Maybe that's the real power of garum. It's disgusting enough to test your resolve, valuable enough to make you forget. As you keep exploring the market, your eyes water a little. You tell yourself it's the smoke from the braziers. But deep down, you know it's the price of learning Rome's most pungent secret. You follow the scent away from the bustling forum toward the workshops where the magic, if you can call it that, happens. The alleys narrow, the walls grow grimy, and suddenly you're face to face with a stack of amphorae caked in salt crust. A worker pries one open and the smell rolls over you in a hot, humid wave that actually makes your eyes sting. You cough, trying not to draw attention, but it's too late. The foreman flashes you a grin that suggests he knows exactly what you're going through. You peer inside the vat. Bus dis, spines, scales all layered like some monstrous lasagna with mounds of sea salt. It's not even the fresh kind of gross, it's the ancient fermenting, don't breathe too, deep kind. And yet here it is, the lifeblood of Roman kitchens. You watch another. Laborers stir the sludge with a giant wooden paddle, and you wonder if he can ever get that smell out of his hair. This is where it all starts, a grotesque alchemy that turns trash into treasure. The recipe is deceptively simple. Take fish offal, the stuff no one else wants. Add an absurd amount of salt. Leave it in the sun for months, sometimes up to a year. Skim off the liquid gold that seeps out. That's garum. It's like making wine, but with more fish heads and existential regret. Historians still argue whether the process was standardized across the empire, or if local variations flourished like microbreweries do today. Some workshops produce thick, paste-like leftovers sold to the poor, while elite factories prided themselves on crystal, clear, honey, gold garum that sold for a senator's ransom. You can practically see the marketing slogans already. For those with taste and a strong stomach, you catch a worker wiping sweat from his brow and muttering under his breath about the rich bastards who'd never set foot here but can't live without the sauce. He's not wrong. Rome's elite could be squeamish about the source while obsessed with the result, kind of like you pretending not to know how hot dogs are made. Nearby, another worker demonstrates how they layer the fish and salt in enormous terracotta vats. The salt doesn't just season, it breaks down the fish proteins, creating that prized umami depth that the Romans couldn't get enough of. It's culinary chemistry perfected long before anyone could spell glutamate. A seagull squawks from the rooftop, diving for scraps. The foreman chases it off, cursing in colorful Latin you don't need to translate to understand. You watch a boy pour brine into smaller amphorae, prepping them for shipment. The amphorae are marked with intricate stamps, some with the factory name, some with the merchant's seal, all promising the customer that what's inside is authentic. Spoiler, it often wasn't. You see, there was big money in garum, enough that fraud was rampant. Cheap sauces were cut with water, wine lees, even fish from polluted rivers. The Romans might not have had social media scandals, but they sure had lawsuits and public shaming for shady vendors. You wonder if Yelp reviews back then would have read 2 stars, gave me food poisoning, but great mouthfeel. As you watch this process, you realize it's more than gross, it's genius. Rome took a waste product that would have otherwise rotted in the sun and turned it into a trade good. This was true empire thinking, maximum extraction of value. Fish sauce wasn't just seasoning, it was commerce, culture, and culinary innovation rolled into one, and if you're being honest, you're grudgingly impressed. You hold your nose, sure, but you also get it. The empire fed millions, and garum was a miracle of preservation and flavor. It let soldiers march farther with tastier rations. It turned bland porridge into something you might actually eat twice, and it was proof that Rome could bend nature, even the sea's stinkiest creatures, to its will. You take one last look into the vat, the briny goo, shimmering in the torchlight. It's like staring into the abyss, except the abyss would probably smell better. A worker slaps the lid on with a practiced flourish, trapping the scent inside temporarily. You step back, exhaling in relief, and as you walk away, you can't help but think, from these piles of guts, Rome built a cornerstone of its economy and culture. Not bad for leftovers, right? You wander along the warehouse corridors, the smell reluctantly fading, and find yourself staring at a line of amphorae stacked like soldiers awaiting orders. Each one is marked with proud insignia, factory stamps, regional boasts, even personal signatures. It's almost funny how seriously they take fish sauce branding, but you start to understand why. This stuff isn't just dinner seasoning, it's social clout in liquid form. You pause to watch a well-dressed merchant oversee the loading of amphorae onto a cart. He's fussing over each one, checking the seals like a sommelier scrutinizing vintage wine. When he notices you gawking, he waves you over with exaggerated hospitality. Best liquorman in the empire, he says, patting one amphora like it's a beloved pet, perfectly clear, aged in the finest terracotta. For senators and poets alike, you raise an eyebrow at that. Poets, really? He doesn't miss a beat, of course. Inspiration needs fuel. You have to stifle a laugh, but he's not wrong. Roman elites threw elaborate banquets that would make a modern Michelin chef weep in envy, and garum was the secret weapon that tied it all together. Historians still argue whether there was a true hierarchy of garum types or just clever marketing. But you see with your own eyes that not all sauces were created equal. The upper crust wanted garum that was filtered, clear, and shockingly expensive. The poor made do with muria or alec, the salty sludge left over from the first pressing, about as refined as licking the inside of a bait bucket. You wander out of the warehouse and into the villa district, where marble pillars gleam in the sun. Here, garum is more than food, it's status. A good host doesn't just serve any sauce. He brags about its provenance, the factory that produced it, and the dizzying price he paid. You can almost hear the conversations. Oh, this, imported from Hispania, cost me half a farm, but you can really taste the sea. A servant hurries past you balancing a tray of tiny dishes. You peer over his shoulder and see neat lines of sauce in various hues from golden amber to inky brown. It's a tasting flight, garum style. You can't help but chuckle at the pretension. It's ancient Rome's answer to wine snobbery, complete with oohs, ahs, and subtle insults if you pick the wrong favorite. In one atrium, you spot a mural depicting a lavish feast. Reclining diners hold goblets of wine while servants pour garum over roast meats and vegetables. The sauce is applied with near religious reverence, like holy oil on a supplicant's head. You even see a side panel showing a slave stirring the sauce with a long-handled ladle, ensuring it's perfectly emulsified before serving. And that's the thing, it's not just taste, it's theater. Serving garum signaled your sophistication, your access to distant trade routes, and your willingness to spend big on something most people would consider trash. It's like today's truffle shavings or gold flaked cocktails. Do you actually want it? Debatable. Do you want people to see you have it? Absolutely. You remember that. Amphora merchant bragging about inspiration for poets. Turns out it wasn't entirely a joke. Roman authors praised garum in verse, extolling its nectar of the sea vibe, while simultaneously complaining about its knock-off versions. A genuine garum might get you clout at dinner parties. When in a bad batch could get you social exile. No one wants to be remembered for serving the ancient equivalent of gas station sushi. Nearby, a rich matron instructs her cook on the precise blend of herbs and spices she wants added to her personal garum stash. She even has her own embossed amphorae because of course she does. Watching her, you realize the sauce isn't just about flavor, it's about control, about demonstrating mastery over nature, trade, and the art of hospitality itself. It's enough to make you dizzy. Or maybe that's still the smell clinging to your clothes. Either way, you get it now. Garum wasn't a foodstuff. It was a declaration, a promise that Rome could civilize even the sea, refuse, and in doing so, prove its cultural superiority. And if you happen to show off a little while you were at it, all the better. You slip out of the marble-clad villas and make your way toward the edge of town, where carts creak under the weight of amphorae bound for distant ports. The road is a frenzy of shouting dockworkers, braying mules, and the steady grind of commerce in action. Everywhere you look, fish sauce is on the move, barrels lashed to wagons, sealed jars nestled in straw, shipping manifests fluttering like frantic birds. It's not just local seasoning anymore. It's a cornerstone of Rome's imperial trade machine. You stop to watch a cartmaster argue with a customs official over a manifest. The list is long. Garum from Baetica, olives from Africa, wine from Gaul. It's a grocery list for an empire, and garum's right there at the top. You catch a whiff of the amphorae and can't help but gag a little, earning you a knowing smirk from the official. First time he asks, you just nod. Historians still argue whether the garum trade was Rome's most profitable food export or merely one of many lucrative sidelines, but no one denies it was big business. Amphorae stamped with factory marks have been found from Britain to Egypt. Roman soldiers on the frontier demanded their rations with a side of home, and nothing tasted more Roman than garum sloshed over barley porridge. You trail the cart toward the docks, stepping carefully around puddles of spilled brine. The harbor is a living organism, pulsing with labor and cursing and the smell of south, some of it from the sea, most of it from laking garum. You see stevedores staggering under the weight of enormous jars while supervisors bark orders. Scribal clerks jot notes on wax tablets, recording every amphora to ensure no one accidentally forgets to pay the port taxes. It's oddly mesmerizing. Stannerae are standardized, sharp-shouldered, narrow-necked, perfect for stacking in ship hulls like puzzle pieces. Rome didn't just conquer lands, it conquered logistics. Every jar is a testament to Roman ingenuity, designed to move maximum product with minimal fuss. You see a merchant smoothing wax over a stamped handle, sealing the deal, literally and figuratively. Nearby, a salty old sailor slumps against a crate and calls you over with a crooked finger. He squints at you, then spits to the side. Ever sailed with that stuff in the hold? He asks. You shake your head. He cackles. Hope you never do. Smell seeps into your bones. Can't get rid of it. My wife says I smell like Poseidon's armpit. You laugh politely, even as you make a mental note never to take up shipping. He tells you stories of storms that cracked amphorae, sending rivers of garum across the deck, of rats who developed a taste for it, of sailors brawling over pilfered jugs to trade at ports. It's clear that while Rome's trade routes were the arteries of empire, garum was the cholesterol, gumming up everything while making the whole system richer. You edge closer to a ship being loaded, the planks creaking as men wrestle jars into place. You notice the inscriptions, Baetica. Lusitania, Africa Perconcillaris. Every province has its specialty. It's like a global brand portfolio, with different factories competing for prestige and profit. You watch a supervisor argue with a merchant about whether a jar's stamp is forged. This isn't Baetica quality, he growls, tapping the clay. More like piss from the Tiber. Fraud was rampant, you learn. That's the price of popularity. Cheap knock-offs threatened the reputation of good producers, sparking local regulations and fines. You can almost hear the ancient ad campaign slogans. Except no, imitation's genuine Baetica garum. It's funny how little changes over time. The sun dips toward the horizon, casting everything in a ruddy glow. The masts of ships stand like forest trunks against the sky, and for a moment the chaos seems beautiful. You realize Rome's hunger for garum was part of something bigger, the dream of a connected world, where goods and ideas traveled farther than anyone had thought possible. And as you turn away from the harbor, you can't help but think how many meals will be seasoned by these jars. How many families, soldiers, poets, and peasants will taste the sea in their lentils and feel, just for a moment, a little closer to Rome itself. You leave the docks behind, your ears still echoing with the shouting of merchants, and wander into the quieter lanes where shopkeepers sweep fish scales from their thresholds. The city smells different here, less raw salt and brine, more baked bread and olive oil. But even here, fish sauce lingers. You pass a tiny tavern with an open window, and the scent wafts out, garum dripped onto grilled lamb, sizzling on the hearth. Your stomach growls despite your better judgment. You duck inside and find a handful of locals arguing over dice while the cook ladles stew from a bubbling pot. The man behind the counter sees you eyeing the pot and gives you a knowing nod. Smells good, eh? Garum from Baetica. Costs a bit more, but customers notice. He says it with the pride of a modern bartender showing off top shelf whiskey. You take a seat and watch him work. He doesn't drown the food in the stuff. It's more like a spell, a few measured drops transforming the entire dish. That's the genius of garum. It amplifies, deepens, elevates. Even the cheapest lentil mash gets an upgrade, a mouth-coating savoriness you can't quite describe but can't live without once you know it. Historians still argue whether the average Roman actually liked it or simply got used to it out of necessity. After all, Rome fed itself on grain doles and rations, and variety wasn't guaranteed. But here in this tavern, you see real delight. The customers moan appreciatively, one even licking his bowl when he thinks no one's looking. A tipsy man at the next table leans over and slurs conspiratorially. They say the best garum's so clear you can read poetry through it. He squints at his own drink and laughs. I wouldn't test it with this stuff, though. You laugh with him, and he raises his cup in a mock toast to Poseidon's pea. You're struck by how democratic it all is. Sure, the rich have their precious filtered versions and delicate dishes, but the working class embraces it too. The Alec the chunky sludge left after. Premium garum is drained, is sold cheap to those who can't afford the clear stuff. It's the dregs of the dregs, but you watch a mother spooning it carefully into her stew, making sure every mouth at her table gets something that tastes of the sea. You wander to the back of the tavern and notice a shelf lined with reused amphorae, each scrawled with different sauce names. The tavern keeper notices you eyeing them and shrugs. Different suppliers, some good, some less good. He winks. You get what you pay for, or what you can get away with. Fraud wasn't limited to exporters. Even local vendors cut their garum with water or cheaper fish byproducts. The Roman authorities tried to crack down with quality marks and fines, but the demand was too high, the profit margins too tempting. You think of modern scandals, horse meat and beef lasagna, fake olive oil, and realize humanity's been playing this game for millennia. Outside, you see another vendor hawking authentic garum at a corner stall. He has amphora shards propped up to display the factory stamps like precious relics. You watch him smooth his toga and swear on Jupiter's name that his sauce is the real deal. His customers nod sagely, pretending they can tell the difference. You can't help but grin at the performance. A breeze picks up, carrying the city's medley of smells, smoked bread, sewage, and yes, fish sauce. You inhale cautiously. Somehow it's appealing, or at least familiar. You realize the sauce has seeped into every corner of Roman life, binding rich and poor, local and foreign, in a shared experience of flavor. You leave the tavern full, or at least less skeptical. You don't know if you'd choose garum on your pizza, but you see why the Romans did. They didn't have the luxury of refrigeration, global spice racks, or takeout apps. They had ingenuity, salt, and time, and they turned that into something everyone could crave, even if it meant getting creative with fish guts. You follow a winding street uphill, the city spreading out below you like a mosaic of tile roofs and shouting hawkers. At the crest stands a sprawling villa, columns gleaming in the afternoon light. You slip through the gate behind a delivery man and find yourself in a courtyard where servants scuttle with trays and amphorae. The owner, a senator with a face like carved marble, lounges on a couch, dictating letters while snacking on figs. He barely glances at the delivery but gestures for his steward to check the seals. You watch the steward squint at the factory stamps, tap the clay, then draw a thin needle through the stopper to sniff the contents. He nods approval and passes the amphora along. This is serious business. You realize this isn't just dinner prep, this is prestige. The senator's household is a small empire of its own: gardeners, cooks, scribes, bodyguards, slaves, all orchestrated to demonstrate power, and Garum is part of the show. He tells visitors he has connections to the best producers, access to the finest trade routes, enough wealth to indulge in culinary snobbery. Historians still argue whether Roman aristocrats genuinely loved Garum's taste or simply used it as social theater, but the effect is undeniable. The senator calls for his cook and discusses tonight's menu like a general planning a battle. Roast boar glazed with honey and garum, stuffed dormice with a hint of licomin. Even the bread will be brushed with a diluted garum mix before baking. The cook listens intently, occasionally offering suggestions. You catch one, perhaps the muria from Lusitania. Sir, it's saltier. Better for the olives. The senator nods magnanimously. You can't help but smirk at the idea of a Roman sommelier for fish sauce. You wander deeper into the villa, noting frescoes of Neptune and sea creatures, subtle nods to the senator's love for marine luxury. The dining room is being prepared with couches, silver platters, and a centerpiece of fresh flowers meant to distract from the smell of simmering sauces in the kitchen. You peek in on the kitchen staff, sweating over clay ovens and braziers. One holds a small amphora to the light, checking its clarity. Another stirs a pot carefully to avoid burning the garum glaze. The head cook barks instructions about balancing flavors. This isn't slapdash peasant cooking it. A haute cuisine, Roman style. One cook pulls you aside conspiratorially. We dilute it with wine sometimes, he whispers. Easier on the nose. They don't notice. He chuckles and gets back to work. You realize these people are artisans, navigating the fine line between authenticity and palatability. As you slip back to the courtyard, you hear the senator rehearsing witty lines to impress his guests. Ah, you can truly taste the tides of Hispania in this one. He's practically vibrating with anticipation at showing off his imported garum. You half expect him to offer a tasting note about seafoam and briny despair. A servant sweeps past with a tray of tiny sauce dishes for the guests to sample when they arrive. It's like a fish sauce flight at a craft brewery, each labeled with provenance and factory mark. You think back to the tavern where Alec was ladled out like gruel and realize the gulf between rich and poor was measured in more than just coin. Even their fish guts had class distinctions. A child runs through the courtyard giggling before being shushed by a nurse. You wonder if he'll grow up demanding only the finest garum or if he'll sneak Alec from the kitchen pot when no one's looking. Either way, he'll know the taste from childhood. It's woven into Roman identity. The sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Lamps are lit. The household shifts gears for the evening feast. The senator stands, adjusts his toga, and strides toward the triclinium with the confidence of a man about to conquer appetites. You watch him go and think about how many deals, alliances, and betrayals will be brokered over those garum soaked dishes tonight, because this isn't just dinner, it's politics, culture, and ambition seasoned liberally with fish sauce. You slip away from the senator, as the lamps glow brighter, and wander down the hill toward the edge of town. The noise of the city softens here. A few stray dogs bark. You find yourself on a dirt path lined with small workshops, places where everyday Romans work with their hands. The glow of forge fires, the tang of wet clay, and always, always that faint perfume of garum. One doorway catches your eye. Inside, too, men argue over a cracked amphora. You lean closer and hear one insist the jar is too damaged to fetch full price. The other waves him off. You think they care about the jar. It's the sauce inside. They haggle until the buyer finally pays up, scowling. You stifle a laugh, even broken. Garum sells. You keep walking and nearly trip over a pile of discarded amphora shards. They crunch underfoot like autumn leaves. A potter nearby notices you staring and waves you over. Good clay, he says, tapping a fragment. I grind it down, use it again, nothing wasted. He pauses, then grins, except the smell. That's forever. He shows you stacks of reused amphorae, cleaned as best as possible. Some he remolds into smaller jugs or lamps. Others he sells as cheap storage for oil or wine. The recycling economy hums along, fishy stench and all. It's resourceful, you think. If slightly pungent, historians still argue whether this amphorae, not Lowe's was driven by frugality, shortages of fresh clay, or just the stubborn practicality of a city that hated waste. But you see the logic here. Rome devoured resources at a staggering rate. Anything that could be reused was, even the stinkiest jars. None as you watch the potter work, he mentions another trade in the area, making cheap garum knockoffs. They use whatever's left in the cracks, he snorts. Pour in seawater, let it sit. Sell it to idiots who don't know better, he shrugs. Better than starving. You raise an eyebrow. He laughs. Don't look at me like that. City's full of fakes. Even the fancy houses get fooled. They don't know unless they smell it. Even then, he winks. You get the sense Rome's black market is as lively as its official trade. Further along the street, you find a communal well. Women fill jars and chatter about prices. One complains the garum seller at the corner is watering his product. Another says her husband doesn't notice, so why pay more? They laugh. Their conversations spice with gossip. You stand quietly, soaking in their world. You think of Alec again, the sludge sold for pennies. A child tugs at his mother's hem, begging for a taste. She gives him a little on her finger. He licks it eagerly. It's not about luxury, you realize. It's about familiarity, comfort. A connection to the sea, to the empire, to Rome itself. You wander farther, where the city fades into farmland. Small homesteads crouch in the twilight, smoke curling from hearths. You see a farmer mixing garum into a pot of beans over an outdoor fire. He stirs with slow patience. You greet him, he nods you closer and lifts the lid. The steam hits you like a salty slap, but there's something appetizing beneath it. He smiles, catches the kid's attention, makes him eat beans. You laugh with him, imagining generations of Roman children tricked into healthy meals with a dash of fishy umami. He ladles you a bit in a cracked bowl, and you try it. It's not bad. Simple filling, undeniably Roman. The farmer sits back and tells you stories of traveling merchants, of arguments over prices, of the time his brother tried making garum himself and stank up the entire valley. Had to bury the barrel, he says, wheezing with laughter. Even the goats wouldn't go near it. You watch the sky darken. Stars prick the velvet above. The smells of the city fade behind you, replaced by earth, smoke, and the faint reek of fermenting fish drifting on the breeze. And somehow, it all feels connected. The fancy villa, the bustling dock, the smoky farm, all tied together by that pungent, irresistible sauce. You realize that in Rome, you're never far from garum, even here, at the edge of empires. Glow, it seasons life with its unmistakable, unforgettable essence. You wake to the sound of haggling, sharp voices cutting through morning fog. You're back near the docks, and a garum auction is already in full swing. Traders shout bids, scribes tally contracts, and strong-backed workers lug heavy amphorae marked with factory seals from around the empire. The energy is electric. This is where fortunes ferment, quite literally. You edge closer and watch a well-dressed buyer inspect a fresh shipment. He breaks the wax seal on one amphora, draws out a sample with a slender ladle, and sniffs. He pauses, considering, then dips a finger in and tastes. Too much scumbroid, he mutters. Where's the mackerel punch? He waves the deal off, and the seller's shoulders droop. That's your cue to ask questions. You approach a weather-worn trader who looks like he's been in the fish. Sauce game since Romulus was in diapers. He's got the crooked grin of someone who knows every trick in the book and probably wrote a few. Mackerel, anchovy, sardine, he says, counting them off on his fingers. Each one gives garum a different kick. The fancy folk want mackerel, more oil, richer flavor. Poor man, S version. Sardines, chopped up with guts and hope. You ask how he tells the difference. He lifts a jar to the light. Clarity. Good garum should glow like honey. If it's cloudy, you're either getting robbed or sick, or both. He winks and adds, still better than some of the wine they sell around here. Historians still argue whether the classification of garum types was formalized into grades like modern olive oil or whether it was just marketing puffery. But the traders here swear by subtle distinctions. Calatrava style liquid, thick elect paste, even variations by region. To them, it's more than sauce. It's a science. You watch a heated negotiation unfold. Two buyers from different provinces want the same high-end Bededecan batch. They argue loudly, accusing each other of price, fixing, and sabotage until a mediator steps in. Eventually, the batch is split, and each man leaves with half the amphorae and a whole lot of bruised pride. One trader nearby leans over and says they'll probably resell it twice the price up north. Tell them it's Emperor's Reserve or some nonsense. You realize Roman marketing might have invented the limited edition scam. The more exclusive the label, the more elite the appeal. Garum didn't just travel, it gained myths along the way. A battered cart rumbles past, piled high with amphorae caked in sea salt. The driver tells you this shipment's headed to Gaul, where Roman settlers crave a taste of home. They dunk their snails in it, he says, wrinkling his nose. Savages. Nain he's of nays. Savages. He's joking mostly, but you detect that special Roman blend of pride and condescension. Garum is theirs, and even when exported, it carries Roman identity like a stamp of cultural dominance. You follow the cart toward a shipping warehouse. Inside, slaves are busy stacking, labeling, wrapping. Each amphora is sealed with care, stamped with origin, weight, and a mark of quality. A foreman checks, each one nodding approval or muttering curses under his breath. One shipment catches your eye. It's headed east, past the Adriatic, maybe even as far as Syria. The thought strikes you. Rome's sauce reaches the ends of its empire. From the chilly rivers of Britannia to the heat-soaked sands of Africa, people are cooking with the same funky amber liquid. If coins are the blood of empire, maybe garum is its sweat. The warehouse clerk lets you peek at his inventory scroll. It's a maze of numbers, names, and locations, but you catch some repeated terms. Garum sociorum, garum flows, liquamen, muria. Each one has a story, a recipe, a following. This isn't just trade, it's branding. You remember the senator's pride, the tavern cook's finesse, the farmer's pragmatism, all of them touched by this sticky, salty concoction. And here in this warehouse, it's being boxed up, shipped out, and woven into the diets of millions. You wonder how many soldiers chew hardtack dipped in garum to feel less homesick. How many provincial governors splash it onto roast lamb while pretending they're dining in the shadow of the Colosseum. As the workers seal the last crate, the foreman claps dust from his hands. That's the last of the Baedekin batch until winter, he says to no one in particular. There's a ripple of mild panic. A buyer scribbles a note. You sense price hikes coming. Garum shortages. The horror. You step outside, the midday sun high now. The scent of the docks is strong salt, sweat, wood tar, and under it all, the unmistakable tang of fermented fish. You breathe it in like a local, because by now, whether you like it or not, you're part of the world's oldest flavor network. You wander from the docks into the maze of the city's narrow lanes, where tenements lean close overhead, blocking out the afternoon sun. Clotheslines crisscross the sky like woven threads, dripping water onto your shoulders. The smell of garum is here too, but different. Less about status, more about everyday life. You pass an elderly woman sitting on a low stool outside her door, carefully cleaning tiny fish over a worn pot. She hums softly, seemingly unaware of the busy street around her. You watch as she sprinkles salt generously over the pile, pressing it down with a well-used wooden tool. She looks up, her eyes sharp and curious. What? Never seen someone make their own sauce? You smile and shake your head. She snorts softly and goes back to work. Costs too much at market, she says quietly. This'll do. My mother taught me. Hers taught her. Roman tradition. You lean against the wall, watching. It's simple. A bit messy, but there's a rhythm to it. Generations of knowledge in every motion. Nearby, children run past, laughing and playing. One boy pauses at the doorway, watching the woman work. Grandma, can I have some? She shoos him away. Not ready yet. Don't want any tummy troubles, do you? The boy runs off giggling and she chuckles softly. You smile too, realizing the sharp-tongued fish-scented grandmother is just as much a part of Rome as any senator in a toga. Historians still argue whether these homemade sauces were true garum or a simpler version. Canjan in ration to vaulting pending on what fish were available and how much salt a family could afford. But to these families, it was theirs and enough. You push deeper into the crowded Insula district, where crumbling walls and faded graffiti tell stories of busy lives. The tavern door swings open, letting out a burst of laughter and the smell of simmering lentils. You step inside. It's dark, smoky, packed with laborers and freedmen sitting shoulder to shoulder. The owner ladles bowls of lentils and barley mash, but you notice a small jug nearby, a battered clay pot marked with a rough fish symbol. He dips in, drizzles a bit over each serving, and passes it along. No fuss, no sales pitch. Everyone expects it. You sit and order a bowl. When it arrives, the garum is the star ingredient. It turns simple porridge into a satisfying meal. You catch the cook's eye. He shrugs. Cheaper than meat. Fills you up. Keeps the landlord happy when rent's due. You wonder if garum helped Rome's huge population manage to eat day after day. A patron beside you slams his cup down. They say Nero drank it straight, he slurs. Said it kept him sharp. Another laughs. Nero, sharp. More like mad. The first man looks at you, belches quietly, and raises his cup to madness. You tap your bowl against his. The tavern keeper leans over and confides, "We water it down, stretch it out." Nobody notices after a couple glasses of wine. He winks. "Margins, friend." You grin, realizing some things never change. Outside, a street vendor pushes a rickety cart, advertising premium fish sauce, direct from Batica. You approach and see the amphorous sealed with cheap wax. He ladles sauce into small jars, selling them for a few coins each. A woman wrinkles her nose, saying it smells strong. He stirs in some water and hands it back with a grin. She shrugs and buys it anyway. You ask if it's real Betacan. He laughs. "Baetica, from my cousin's shed outside the city walls." No one knows, or they don't care. He gives you a knowing look. Everyone deserves garum, even if they can't afford the fancy stuff. Watching him work, you realize Rome isn't just marble and empire, it's everyday hustle, small adaptations, and hopes pieced together one coin at a time. As the sun sets, painting red across crowded rooftops, you realize garum captures this city as contradictions. Luxury and simplicity, pride and survival, the promise of empire and the familiar scent of fish sauce in every alley. You breathe it in and keep walking, part of the city now, the salty aroma clinging to you like a second skin. You find yourself wandering into the quieter parts of the city, where the hustle softens into a low-humming gardens peeked between stone walls. Here, wealthier Romans cultivate not just olives and grapes, but also fish in specially designed tanks, a kind of early aquaculture. You pause beside one such garden, where clear pools rippled gently filled with silver-scaled fish gliding lazily beneath floating leaves. A gardener tends the tanks, carefully skimming debris while humming a tuneless song. He notices your interest and beckons you closer. "Fish for the table and the sauce," he explains. The freshest garum starts with the freshest fish, kept alive until the last moment. He lifts a slender net and pulls out a shining mackerel, its skin slick and gleaming. You realize this is a step beyond the crowded docks or open sea catches. It's a luxury that not everyone could afford, the ability to delay death and fermentation by keeping fish alive until the exact moment they're needed. Aquaculture of sorts, designed to ensure garum's flavor is both potent and fresh. Historians still argue whether this practice was widespread or confined to elite households, but evidence points to specialized farms in the Bay of Naples and around Rome itself. You imagine the expense involved, the skilled labor, the attention needed to balance water salinity and cleanliness, an ancient high-maintenance hobby. The gardener leans in and whispers conspiratorially. Some say the best garum needs a touch of mystery. Fish caught only at night, mixed with secret herbs fermented in amphorae buried in sand. You smile, imagining Roman chefs as alchemists, guarding recipes like state secrets. Nearby, a table is set under a pergola draped with grapevines. The senatorial family from the villa earlier has begun their midday repast. You see servants carrying dishes glazed with golden garum, their scent rising like an ocean breeze tinged with honey and salt. A woman in a flowing stola raises a small glass filled with a dark amber liquid. To Neptune she toasts softly, and to the bounty of the sea that flavors our lives. Her voice carries warmth, and for a moment you glimpse how deeply garum is woven into the rituals of Roman life, both mundane and sacred. You recall the lively markets, the smoky taverns, the stinky workshops, and the quiet farms, all threads in this vast tapestry. Garum isn't just a condiment, it's a symbol of empire identity and taste. You sip the tiny glass, feeling the sharp tang explode on your tongue. As you look around, you notice the garden's quiet rhythm, water dripping from leaves, birds chirping faintly, and the distant murmur of the city. It's a peaceful contrast to the earlier chaos, but no less alive. You think about how this sauce, born of fish guts and salt, has transcended its humble origins to become a staple of Roman tables and a marker of status. It binds together the vast empire from the poorest fisherman's shack to the most opulent villa. The gardener nods toward the horizon where the sun begins to sink, painting the sky with colors that rival the amber glow of garum itself. "It's a taste you never forget," he says quietly. You nod, feeling the lingering salt on your lips and the weight of centuries of tradition settling gently around you. Section 11. You drift from the quiet gardens back into the city's heart, where the day's heat clings stubbornly to the stones and the air buzzes with life. It's the hour when street vendors set up their stalls, filling the alleyways with calls and the mingled aromas of roasting meats, fresh bread, and, of course, that unmistakable tang of garum. You follow your nose to a small stall where a burly man flips skewers over a charcoal brazier. The sizzling sound is hypnotic. He ladles a thick reddish-brown sauce over the meat, steam rising as it hits the coals. A curious child tugs at her mother's sleeve, begging for a taste. The mother obliges, wiping the sticky glaze from the little girl's chin with a smile. Garum glaze, the vendor says with pride, catching your interest. Not just for dipping, it's the secret to good street food. He grins, revealing stained teeth, and offers you a small skewer. The flavor is sharp, salty, with a hint of sweetness, an instant upgrade from plain roasted meat. You notice a group of rowdy soldiers nearby, slurping from clay cups. Their laughter is loud and rough, but they're careful to pass around a bottle of garum, dipping their bread into it between gulps. One soldier winks at you, saying, "Keeps the bugs away and the spirits up." Tell the centurion. Historians still argue whether soldiers carried bottled garum on campaigns or relied on local supplies. Some say it was a morale booster. Others claim it was more about practical nutrition. Either way, the link between garum and Roman military life is undeniable. You watch as a woman sells small pastries filled with fish and herbs, brushed with garum before baking. The customers devour them greedily, praising the little bites of the sea. It strikes you how garum isn't just a sauce, but a versatile ingredient woven into many foods, from the simplest street fare to elaborate feasts. Nearby, a poet recites verses extolling Neptune's bounty, weaving garum into his lines as a symbol of life's richness and impermanence. You catch a snippet. In briny depths, the flavors rise, a sauce that tastes of ocean's size. The crowd applauds, and you feel the sauce's cultural weight pressing gently around you. You overhear a debate between two cooks about the best way to prepare garum. Some swear by long fermentation in clay jars buried in sun-warmed earth. Others prefer quicker methods using salt and fresh fish. This dispute mirrors broader questions about authenticity and tradition. You wonder how many recipes were lost to time, replaced by modern tastes or simpler substitutes. But clearly, garum's essence remained, a salty thread linking people across space and generations. As dusk falls, you see street lamps flicker on, casting flickering shadows over the worn cobblestones. The city exhales a tired but contented sigh, and the last garum vendors pack up for the night. You inhale deeply, savoring the lingering scent of salt, smoke, and fermented fish. It's a smell both strange and comforting, a reminder that no matter where you are in Rome, garum is never far. You feel oddly connected to this ancient city, to its people and their taste through something as simple, as complex, and as pungent as fish sauce. You step into a grand domus illuminated by flickering oil lamps, where the clink of fine glassware and soft murmur of conversation fill the air. The wealthy elite have gathered for a senate, a formal dinner, and garum is center stage, not just a humble sauce, but a mark of refinement and power. You're seated beside a senator whose toga is crisp and impeccably white. He swirls the wine in his glass thoughtfully before nodding toward the appetizer. Oysters topped with a delicate drizzle of garum, accented by crushed herbs and a whisper of honey. Garum, he says with pride, is the soul of Roman cuisine. No dish is truly complete without it. You taste the oyster. The garum heightens its briny sweetness, weaving complexity you never expected. The sauce isn't just saltiness. It's layered umami before the term existed, a taste that teases the palate and beckons for more. Historians still argue whether garum was as universally beloved among the elite as popular culture suggests. Some accounts hint that the richest Romans more subtle flavors or even imported Eastern sauces, but no one denies garum's ubiquitous presence. As the courses progress, you watch the host expertly manage the kitchen slaves. They ladle garum into sauces, mix it into minced meat fillings, and even sprinkle it sparingly over fruit desserts, creating a curious sweet, salty contrast. The guests murmur approval, and you begin to see garum as a culinary muse inspiring experimentation. Between courses, the senator boasts about his recent acquisition, a rare batch of garum sociorum, harvested from fish caught under a full moon in the northern seas. They say the moonlight cures it differently, he explains, imparting a subtle glow and flavor unlike any other. You smile inwardly, recalling similar tales about mysterious night fished garum from the gardener you met earlier. Roman Epicureans loved a good legend almost as much as a good bite. Later, the conversation drifts to trade routes. Exotic spices and rare fish varieties traverse the empire, but garum remains the foundation. Its production connected distant provinces through shared taste and commerce, from Hispania's sun-drenched coasts to the bustling ports of Asia Minor. You realize garum wasn't just a condiment, it was a symbol of Rome's reach and influence. Its tang was empire distilled, an edible ambassador of cultural identity. The senator's wife offers you a small dish of honeyed dates sprinkled with a tiny pinch of garum. You hesitate, then taste. The unexpected blend is oddly compelling, a dance of flavors you wouldn't find in any cookbook. As the evening winds down, soft music fills the room. You recline on a couch, feeling full and oddly satisfied, your senses tingling with the layers of taste and history you've just sampled. Outside, the city's noises fade into a gentle lull, and you drift into thoughts about how this strange, pungent sauce connects emperors, slaves, soldiers, and poets alike. You settle deeper into the cushions, Garam's ghost lingering on your palate as the night wraps you in its quiet embrace. You slip quietly from the opulent villa back onto the crowded streets, where night markets pulse with activity beneath flickering oil lamps. The air is cooler now, but still thick with the mingled scents of roasting meats, spilled wine, and, unmistakably, the persistent salty tang of garum. You drift toward a stall where a wizened man is selling small jars of the sauce, carefully labeled in faded ink. His hands shake slightly as he wraps your purchase in a rough cloth, his eyes twinkling with pride. Best garum this side of the Tiber, he claims, his voice a low rasp. As you walk away, the hum of conversation swells around you. You overhear a group of young men debating the finer points of garum fermentation. One argues that longer aging produces the richest flavor. Another insists that quick, fresh batches capture the true spirit of the sea. The argument fades into laughter and playful jabs. Historians still argue whether these nuances were as important to everyday Romans or if they belonged mostly to gastronomic elites. Either way, it's clear that garum inspired passion and pride across social strata. You recall reading about garum's role in religious ceremonies. Priests offered the sauce to Neptune and other deities, believing its briny essence carried blessings of the sea. Some even used it to anoint statues or sacred altars, invoking protection and fertility. Curious, you find a quiet temple tucked away behind columns and shrubbery. Its walls are cracked but adorned with faded frescoes depicting fishermen, nets, and amphorae. You imagine garum once played a role here, linking the mortal and divine through its pungent, salty presence. Nearby, a small group of fishermen gather around a fire, sharing stories and dipping stale bread into a communal pot of garum. Their laughter is rough but genuine, filled with camaraderie. You sit with them briefly, savoring the warmth and the shared simplicity. One fisherman, his face weathered by sun and salt, tells you about the risks of sea fishing, the storms, the nets, the ever-present threat of scarcity. Garum, he says, is a kind of insurance. Even if the catch is small, the sauce preserves enough flavor to feed his family. You think about the sauce, paradox born from decay yet symbolizing life, crude yet treasured, simple yet essential. It's a taste of survival and celebration all at once. As the night deepens, you wander back through shadowed alleys toward your lodging. The city's pulse slows but never stops. Garum's scent lingers, a reminder of a civilization built on salt, sweat, and the sea. You close your eyes briefly, tasting the night air infused with the ghosts of fish guts and empire. Tomorrow, you'll dive even deeper into this fascinating obsession. For now, you let the rhythms of Rome and its pungent favorite sauce carry you toward sleep. You wake to the distant clang of the forum's opening bells, the city stirring beneath a pale morning sky. Today, you head to the bustling marketplace, the forum's noisy heart, where merchants from across the empire gather to hawk their goods. The scent of fresh bread mingles with sharp spices, but the familiar tang of garum threads through the air like an invisible current. You weave through the crowds, eyes-catching barrels stacked high, some labeled with intricate seals from Baetica, others bearing crude marks from local producers. Garum isn't just a condiment here. It's a commodity traded, taxed, and fought over like precious gold. A merchant calls out, extolling the virtues of his latest batch, fermented in oak barrels, aged 3 moons, finest fish from the Lusitanian coast. His voice is persuasive, but you notice some buyers squint skeptically at the jars. Counterfeit garum was a known problem, and the market was rife with clever fakes. You stop by a stall where a woman carefully examines a jar, her fingers tracing the faded label. Does it have the proper tang? She asks the seller. He nods confidently. Only the real stuff has that sharp kick followed by a mellow finish. The others taste like rotten seaweed. She nods, pleased, and buys 2 jars. Historians still argue whether the garum market was tightly regulated or more laissez-faire chaos. Some evidence suggests officials stamped amphorae to certify quality, while other reports hint at widespread fraud and adulteration. You watch as a group of freedmen bargain loudly over prices, using garum as currency for favors and small debts. You owe me a jar of Baetica for that help last week, one says with a grin. The other grumbles but nods in agreement. Garum had value beyond flavor. It was social currency. Nearby, you spot a group of children playing a game involving empty amphorae, rolling them along cobblestones and cheering each small victory. Even the young were steeped in the culture of garum, their laughter echoing through the ancient streets. You move on to a nearby fishmonger's stall where fresh catches gleam under woven baskets. The vendor talks about how the day's haul will soon become tomorrow's garum, a transformation both magical and practical. Nothing goes to waste, he says, gesturing to less marketable fish tossed aside for the sauce. You ponder the ecological impact. Fishing wasn't just sport or sustenance, it was industry, and garum made use of every scale, every bone. This efficient use of resources is remarkable, though historians still argue about the environmental strain Rome's appetite placed on marine life. As midday approaches, the sun climbs high and the market's energy intensifies. You sip water from a nearby fountain, letting cool flow wash away the salt and sweat. The garum scent clings stubbornly to your clothes and skin, a reminder that in Rome the taste of fish sauce is never far. You smile, feeling connected to centuries of trade taste and daily life woven tightly together by this pungent, storied sauce. You find yourself wandering toward the sprawling docks where the morning bustle is at its peak. Fishermen haul in nets heavy with wriggling fish, their voices rising in a chaotic chorus of shouts and laughter. The salty tang of the sea mixes with the sharper, fermenting aroma of garum vats set up near the piers. An unmistakable signature of industry at work. You watch as workers dump fish guts and small catches into large sunlit vats, layering them with coarse salt. The process looks both crude and strangely precise, a blend of ancient wisdom and practical necessity. The sun beats down, accelerating the fermentation, and you imagine the bubbling, slow transformation taking place beneath the surface. Historians still argue whether garum production was centralized in large factories or mostly done in smaller family-run operations. Archaeological evidence suggests both coexisted, reflecting Rome's complex economy. Nearby, a young apprentice meticulously stirs the vats with a long wooden pole, careful not to disturb the delicate balance. He tells you the secret is patience and knowing when to stop. Too long, and the sauce turns bitter. Too short, and it lacks depth. You smell the pungent aroma rising in waves, a combination of salt, fish, and something almost sweet. It's a smell that many Romans adored, but also one that caused visitors to wrinkle their noses in polite disgust. A local vendor nearby offers you a small taste, thick and intensely flavored. Your mouth tingles with salt and umami, and you marvel at how something so simple can evoke such complexity. You notice that garum wasn't just about taste, it was also medicine and hygiene. Romans believed it could soothe wounds, ease digestion, and even act as a deodorant. You smile, thinking about ancient fish sauce as a kind of all-purpose elixir, far removed from today's culinary uses. You wander among the vats and barrels, imagining the families who dedicated their lives to this pungent craft. You recall a quirky tidbit. Some garum producers supposedly added exotic ingredients like crocodile dung or fermented honey to their recipes, hoping to create a signature flavor. Historians debate how widespread these practices were, or if they were more myth than reality. As the afternoon sun shifts, the docks hum with steady activity. Ships arrive from distant provinces, bringing fresh fish and spices, while others load amphorae filled with garum for shipment across the empire. You watch a crate labeled Garum Flavianum being carefully sealed and prepared for transport. The name hints at a prestigious brand, possibly favored by emperors and senators, brand loyalty and regional pride. Garum echo modern food culture more than you expected. The salty breeze carries the scent of the sea and the sauce, mingling into an ancient perfume that defines Rome's portside life. You feel the pulse of a city fueled by fish, salt, and fermentation, an empire whose flavor literally shaped its identity. You follow a narrow alley off the main street, drawn by a faint, almost imperceptible odor, a mix of salt, earth, and something a little sour. Here lies the garum workshop, tucked away behind crude wooden doors, stained with generations of splashes and spills. The air is thick with the unmistakable smell of fermenting fish, an olfactory assault that only a true Roman could endure or love. Inside, you find rows of amphorae, their necks sealed with clay and wrapped in straw, lined up like soldiers awaiting deployment. You watch as an elder artisan carefully tests the contents of one, dipping a wooden spoon and nodding thoughtfully. His fingers are stained dark from years of work, and his eyes gleam with pride. You see, he explains, the art of garum is in patience and precision. Too little salt, and the fish rots. Too much, and the flavor dies. We watch the sun, the wind, the fish itself. It speaks to us. His voice is soft, but carries the weight of centuries. Historians still argue about the exact recipes and regional variations, some swearing by mackerel, others favoring anchovies or even shellfish. The variety reflects local tastes, fish availability, and perhaps the whims of individual producers. You notice small jars labeled garum medicinalis resting on a shelf. Apparently, some garum was specially prepared for health purposes, less pungent, more refined, used as a digestive aid or wound salve. The dual role of garum as both food and medicine fascinates you. Nearby, a young apprentice adds herbs and spices, coriander, dill, maybe even a hint of mint to a new batch. The infusion softens the sharpness, creating subtler notes. This experimentation reflects Roman culinary innovation, mixing tradition with creativity. A quirky tidbit you recall, some garum makers believe that playing music during fermentation improved flavor, although historians debate whether this was superstition or early food science. You smile, imagining amphorae humming to lyres and flutes. Outside, you glimpse a delivery cart loaded with fresh fish bound for the workshop. The entire neighborhood seems alive with the pulse of production, the smell, the sounds, the constant movement. You step back into the street, the garum aroma still clinging to your clothes. Despite its intensity, it feels oddly comforting, a reminder of the cycles of life and flavor in ancient Rome. You continue your journey sensing that this pungent sauce is not just a culinary staple but a living tradition, blending the practical, the sacred, and the deeply personal. You climb a winding hill toward a rustic villa on the empire's edge where rural life blends with Roman sophistication. Here, garum production takes on a different hue, not just a commercial endeavor, but a family craft steeped in local tradition. You're greeted by the villa's owner, a stern but kindly matron who proudly shows you her estate's garum workshop. The fish come from nearby streams and ponds, smaller in scale, but no less vital to the household economy. You watch as her workers prepare fresh batches, layering fish and salt in terracotta vats shaded beneath olive trees. You've a whip. The process feels slower, more intimate, a stark contrast to the industrial vats at the city docks. Historians still argue how much of Rome's garum supply came from rural producers versus massive coastal factories. This blend of scale reflects the bend to empire's vastness and diversity. The matron shares stories of her ancestors, whose recipes passed down through generations. She insists that the secret to great garum lies in the fish's freshness and the patience to let nature work its magic. You notice jars labeled with various herbs, rosemary, thyme, bay leaves added to infuse unique flavors. Nay, just this regional creativity speaks to the adaptability of garum, tailored to local tastes and available ingredients. A quirky fact you recall, some rural garum makers believed that fermenting the sauce under moonlight enhanced its qualities, a charming superstition blending nature and culinary art. Scholars debate the origin and impact of such beliefs. Later, you sit beneath a pergola savoring a simple meal of bread dipped in garum olives and fresh cheese. The salty sauce elevates humble ingredients into a feast, reminding you how essential it was to daily sustenance. As the sun sets, the landscape glows golden and the sounds of cicadas fill the air. You feel a deep connection to this place, where tradition, nature, and flavor intertwine. You realize garum wasn't just a product of cities or empire-wide trade. It was also homegrown, personal, and intimately tied to the land and people. The taste lingers, a quiet reminder that the empire's obsession with fish sauce reached every corner, from the grand halls to the simplest farms. That of the Pepibi Irgen 7. You find yourself wandering the shadowed corridors of a Roman bathhouse, where the mingled scents of oil, sweat, and now faintly, garum, swirl in the steamy air. Here, the connection between garum and daily life takes on an unexpected twist. Beyond the table, the sauce finds uses in hygiene and ritual. You watch bathers lather themselves with fragrant oils, some rumored to include garum as a base ingredient. The idea of fish sauce as part of a beauty regimen might sound strange to you, but Romans prized scents and believed that the umami-rich liquid could help with skin ailments and even mask less pleasant odors. Historians still argue whether these uses were widespread or mostly confined to certain social classes, but evidence suggests garum was more versatile than just a culinary ingredient. You overhear a discussion among patrons about recipes blending garum with herbs and honey to create a kind of restorative balm. One woman swears by it for softening skin, another for easing muscle aches after the frigid plunge pool. A quirky tidbit emerges. Gladiators were rumored to consume large quantities of garum for strength and stamina, a practice that some scholars dismiss as myth, while others find intriguing parallels with modern sports supplements. The bathhouse hums with life, laughter, splashes, quiet conversations, and you notice how garum's influence permeates even here, part of the sensory tapestry of Roman daily routine. Stepping outside, you see fish sauce and fillet lined up near vendors selling snacks and drinks, reminding you that garum was never far. Even in places of relaxation, you reflect on the strange duality of garum crude yet refined, beloved yet maligned, food and medicine, luxury and necessity. This humble sauce, born of salt and fish guts, was woven into the very fabric of Roman identity, a testament to a civilization that found flavor and meaning in the unexpected. As you leave the bathhouse behind, the day's warmth fading into cool evening air, you carry with you the lingering taste and stories of Garum's many lives. The quiet night wraps itself around you. The bustling city and its pungent secrets settle into peaceful slumber. The sharp tang of garum, once so vivid and all-encompassing, softens into a gentle echo, a whispered flavor fading at the edges of your senses. Imagine the slow, steady rhythm of the Mediterranean waves, brushing ancient shores with patience and calm, much like the slow fermentation that birthed this remarkable sauce. Tonight, you carry with you a taste of history, a sensory journey through time that reveals how something as simple as fermented fish could capture the spirit of an empire. The stories of garum are woven from the salt-stained hands of fishermen, the laughter of market vendors, the quiet concentration of artisans, and the delicate touch of cooks who transformed humble ingredients into culinary art. Let the vivid colors of Roman markets fade into soft shadows, and the clamor of amphorae into the gentle hush of night. You are cradled by a world where flavor was more than sustenance, it was connection, tradition, and sometimes a bit of magic. Now, as you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the cool sea breeze mingling with the faint scent of salt and herbs, carrying you away from the crowded streets and into a realm of peaceful dreams. The Empire's obsession with fish sauce, strange and fascinating, becomes a lullaby of the past. Good night, and may your dreams be as rich and layered as the taste of garum itself.